All right, and the final presentation before the break is Kaye Stevens.
Well, good morning. An absolute privilege to be here with you today. So, Kaye Stevens, I'm the Care Information Manager at the MND Association, covering England, Wales and Northern Ireland. And my remit is to manage and help to produce the care information that we send out to people with MND, their carers and families. I'm here today to talk to you about a particular piece that we've developed, our eating and drinking guide for people with MND, ALS, and about the move towards quality of life information. But before I do, I'm just going to play you a short extract of a longer video that we have on our website, just to set the scene. So this was a question that was set to us really from our target audience. How about a cookbook with recipes that taste just as good blended as they do unblended? It was about sharing of information between families. So we worked with families affected by MND and professionals to develop the new guide. It offers both information and easy swallow recipes. And it looks at ways to help if you have swallowing difficulties or weight loss with MND. It also looks at nutrition, food preparation, eating out and recipes.
I should definitely use the recipes as a guide.
I found today has given reassurance for Jeff that he is doing a lot right.
We feel rest assured as professionals that it's safe, sound, evidence-based advice.
So just to set the scene really, and to give you an idea that the guide was actually co-produced with people affected by MND and with professionals. But where do you start? Eating and drinking is affected by so many things with MND, isn't it? Swallowing, grip, mobility, fatigue. So it's very, very difficult to know exactly where you settle in terms of trying to provide a guide. You need to overview all of that. But the thing is that food is one area where you can take a little control back if you know how, and that's what we wanted to do and to help people with. But when we started to look around, we found that actually, although there was a lot of information out there about dysphagia and ease of swallowing, it was quite clinical and it wasn't produced in a particularly appealing way. And it didn't focus on MND, it was pretty generic. So essentially, it was unavailable elsewhere. We knew that our audience had actually asked us for guidance. We wanted to raise awareness of their needs. And we also wanted to balance our provision. We'd done an immense amount of work on health and social care information and symptom management, but we hadn't taken that step back to look at the enjoyment of life. And that was what we wanted to do here. But underlying all of that, there was this hidden value that this type of quite gentle information can still open up difficult conversations, and I will come back to that later. So let's just go back to quality of life for a moment, because it's very difficult to define, isn't it? My perception of my quality of life will be very different to yours, or anybody in this audience today. We're all unique individuals with very, very different expectations. But it does come back to really a sense of satisfaction in life, a sense of self. And there's always this challenge, isn't there? Expectation versus reality. So if our expectation in any one aspect of our life is up here, but repeatedly what we actually achieve in reality is down here, then our perception of quality of life is going to be fairly poor. And as we know, MND will bring unwanted and unexpected change. But the one thing that we human beings are very, very good at doing is learning how to adapt. And expectations can change too. And there was the spark. If good guidance can help to reset expectations to a different but achievable reality, then maybe our information can help to impact positively on quality of life. And I think that as professionals, we tend to get a little bit serious, don't we? Quality of life, I mean, it's a bit of a term, isn't it? It's jargon, it's what we use. It's not really what the person on the street talks about. They don't talk about their quality of life. And I think we forget sometimes that it's not always about, for the individual anyway, the bigger things or the wider picture. It's about the little things, the small moments, the intimacy of life. This is Brian and his wife Jeanette, and Brian is at the start really of swallowing difficulties with MND. And for him, it wasn't about the adapting to a different way of eating and drinking. He felt that he could deal with all of that. That wasn't his issue. This is what he was worried about. I still want to eat out with my wife and enjoy the same flavours together. They were foodies. They loved eating out. It was their relationship was built around this. And he didn't want to lose that. Now, we can't reverse Brian's symptoms. And information certainly can't do that. But good guidance, it can help with this. So how did we find out what people's expectations actually were? Well, we did the usual survey. And we also did some telephone interviews with families that had gone further down the line, where the swallowing difficulties for the person with MND were quite severe, so we really understood some of the issues. But we also held a cookery event, and we pulled in 3 families and professionals, and we played around with techniques, different preparation techniques. We cooked an easy swallow meal together. We sat and we ate together, and we had a good old chat. And it was a very, very laughter-filled day, but some really serious stuff came out of it. And what we found out was what they did know, but also what they didn't know and needed help with. We also had recipe contributions to go into the guide for easy swallow recipes from families affected by MND, from professionals, and also from celebrity chefs on UK television, which gave a nice sort of warm sense of wider input and appeal into the guide. So we added in the personal stories, the quotes, the hints and tips, all of that shared family information. And when we came to user testing, the people at the cookery event helped us with that, but we also had a control group of people with MND and carers who had not seen the guide at all up to that point to check that we hadn't missed anything. So how can it actually help? Well, it has to feel more of a cookery book than a health manual, and that was really key. So it feels, for the professional, we hope anyway, more like giving a gift to that person than actually just giving them information. And it does have information in, about half of it is the guidance, and we also then have the recipes. But it does have all of the key messaging. So fortifying foods to add extra calories to help with weight loss, thickening to change consistencies. We also look at eating out, access to support and assistive aids, the socialization around food, and also techniques. So looking at things like fork mashing, blending foods, piping, and using food molds to actually shape the foods so that blended carrots still look like carrots on the plate. And that is so important, not just for appetite, which of course is important, but also for dignity. Because if you sit down with your family and friends and you want to eat a meal with them, you don't want a bowl of mush in front of you when they're all eating a standard format meal. You want your meal to be the same as theirs. And this is what our target audience were telling us. So our recipes. A recipe to a page, as you would get in a cookery book. Not just a few lines in black and white, but done in a visual and appealing manner. A double-page spread, if it was a contributed recipe, with biogs and quotes and little hints and tips. And because we couldn't feature a standard, fully cooked meal, because somebody with swallowing difficulties might not be able to eat that, and we didn't want to just have lots of pages of blended foods, because let's face it, visually that's not very appealing, which is why we concentrate on things like piping and food molds. We pulled out just one key ingredient from each of those recipes, which gave it a nice, colourful visual appeal and helps to spark appetite a little bit. But again, those really key sensitive issues are still in there, embedded in a very, very gentle way. So why do I need to think about tube feeding? The timeliness of that, and then referencing them out to more detailed information for decision making. So this is not too heavy or too overwhelming for them at this point. We co-produced, obviously, with people with MND, their carers, and also with professionals. But we also sought endorsement from the British Dietetic Association, or the BDA, also known as the Association of UK Dietitians. And that's really important because that lends credibility so that other professionals, anyone involved with eating and drinking concerns, feels that they're handing over something that is evidence-based. And we also work under the information standard, which Rachel introduced earlier, which means that we go through a rigorous process. And the NHS England basically then allow us to put this stamp on our work to say it's trustworthy. So what do people think of the guide? Well, thankfully they did think that it was beautifully produced, bright and encouraging. But the key thing was that we were getting back things like, I'm looking forward to trying the recipes. We'd never had anyone looking forward to our information before. They might find it useful, we get very good feedback, but looking forward was not something that we'd experienced. So that thing about quality of life, we felt that we were getting the kind of validation back that indicated that we were achieving that possibly, but also that the information was still invaluable. Somebody also sent back this one, that it was helpful with humour, and we were so pleased to receive this because all of that laughter at the cookery event we had tried to inject in the pages where appropriate. And yeah, we hope that helps to provide a little bit of levity within it. But professionals also recognised that food was about love, nurture and support, not just about decision making and health. And yet they still like the honesty within the guide. It's factual, but it makes it seem not so scary and manageable. So it's available as a printed guide, a PDF for download, and in January we're also introducing a web app of the recipes and a summary of the information. Our first year is not quite complete yet, actually. It's only about sort of 10 months old, but we predict about 1,200 send-outs in all, and nearly 2,000, coming off of 2,000 online downloads as well, which bodes well for the web app that's coming along. And this is about increasing accessibility, so that's all about quality of life as well, giving people choices so they can use their smartphones, their tablets, particularly carers in the kitchen if they're helping to prepare all the food. They have ways of accessing that that'll make it easier for them too. And of course there are lots of hints and tips within the guide for carers because they have equal weight within this particular resource. So in terms of take home, quality of life information can add positivity for the recipient and your provision while actively encouraging well-being. It can also gently ease people towards important decisions, becoming a useful tool to open those difficult conversations on the more sensitive areas. And that's it. Thank you very much. Has anybody any questions?
Good morning.
Hello.
I'm Kathleen Smith from Birmingham, Alabama. In the guide, does it tell you how to get the food molds and those things for the people as well?
It does, but not specific addresses, but certainly gives an idea of where to go. And we do include suggested sort of suppliers and providers in most of our information. So that's always part of what we do to redirect people.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Shane Robinson. I am the dietitian from Columbia Presbyterian's ALS clinic. And I'm wondering, in the guide, when you refer to different textures, are you using the international standardized language, the new IDDSI?
No, we're using language that patients identify with. Okay. So that's really key. This was not written for professionals. This was written for the families to understand. So we talk about blending, we talk about fork mashing, we talk about different consistencies, but we don't necessarily use jargon. And that's very important. It's always plain English, things that the families themselves will identify with and be able to put into practice.
And do you also talk about blending for administration via a feeding tube?
No, this is not about tube feeding. The whole idea of this guide was to prolong the independence of eating orally for as long as somebody feels safe or wishes to do so. But we do, as I say, reference out to tube feeding and more detailed information on that when they're ready to consider that option.
Thank you.
Hello, Sarah Cadell from Wales OT. I was quite interested in the cooking event. Was that a one-off event, or are you likely to have some more?
Well, it was our first event of that type. It was very successful and an incredibly enjoyable day. As I said, there's something about bringing people around a table with food that is inherently social. And so it became a little bit of a party, actually. But we learnt so much from it, and I think we've certainly done some after-action sort of reviewing, looking back, lessons learnt, that kind of thing from that day. I think when we come round to revising this guide, we might think about doing another one. We don't have a series of them planned, but it was a unique and incredibly informative way of actually engaging with users by doing something with them rather than just doing a focus group with a whiteboard and questions. And yeah, I think there was something quite special about that.
Are there any international recipes, like for different countries?
Are there international recipes for different countries?
Yes, thank you. Yes, there are. We tried very hard to ensure that there was really quite a wide selection. Yes, there's recipes in there from Jamaica. One of our celebrity chefs is Jamaican, so he'd introduced one for us. From France, from all around the world, actually. So there's a good spread, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes. While the microphone's getting up there, where did you hold the cookery event?
Well, that was. It turned out in a really positive way. We worked with a local university in our the area where we actually have our national office, and in the end, they really took it on board. And they offered their student kitchens, which were friendly in terms of disabilities, and they then provided all the food, and they came in and they helped, and they ran articles on it for their own sort of college newspapers. So in effect, we were completely and utterly hosted, which was rather wonderful. So working again with partnerships out in the community is really, really important. And not only just because you get that assistance and help and service back, but also I think because you're raising awareness within a community as you do it. So it's a two-way thing.
Hello, I'm Ruth Ann Rhodes from the ALS Clinic in University of Vermont Medical Center. These are great ideas. Where can we order the printed guides?
Would you know, it's really weird. Every time we tweet about this, we do get dietitians and speech and language therapists particularly saying, where can we get hold of this? It's available on our website to download now. And we can send out guides. If it's for other conditions or if it's in bulk, and it's not directly going to help people with MND, then we do charge at cost price, which is relatively low. But otherwise, it's free to all people with MND or affected by MND or to professionals that are directly helping at the time. So just contact the association if you'd like a sample copy.
Great. Thank you very much.